Right, it's really early and I'm really tired. Today I thought I would do my makeup and talk about a horror film that is based on a true story. I'm kind of going to do this for the Halloween series because it seems like a really good idea. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn myself into the character from the film. So today we're going to talk about my favourite, The Exorcist. Because believe it or not, The Exorcist is based on a true story. So products I'm going to use, some of them are from like local Halloween shops and stuff. Some of them are Kryolan, but you can still get cream colours, or you can switch out for water activated paints instead of cream paints. I just prefer cream paints because they look a bit more realistic on the skin. Okay, so The Exorcist, young Regan in the film. So the film was released in 1973 and it's obviously about a girl called Regan who gets possessed by the devil. Her mum calls in this priest, Tinsley Tattoo. Now apparently the film was based on journals written by a priest that was actually the real exorcism, like the real event that really happened. And the name of the priest, hang on, it's going to be loud. The name of the priest that was actually there was called William Bodar. William Bodar. And now we've got these kind of tattoos. Oh, we love that one. William Bodar. So he wrote journals every single day that he was dealing with this person in his real life. He was 52 and they were living in St. Louis. The real life story takes part in St. Louis. They didn't give a year, but judging by what they're saying and by the clothes that they wore now, it kind of looks like the early 1950s, like that kind of time. There was a boy named Richie Rich, a little cut, and he, hang on, need my water, named Richard. He was really close to a woman in his family who was his aunt, called Aunt Millie. Now Aunt Millie was a spiritualist, whereas Richard and his family were more like Catholics. So Richard and his Aunt Millie were really close, and she used to come over and encourage him to use the Ouija board. Obviously, what spiritualists believe is that there is life after death, that our spirits, how quick was that? That our spirits remain here. Oh, I'm impressed. These are from my local Halloween shop as well. Anyway, she believed that you could communicate with the dead via Ouija boards and stuff. So yeah, her and Richard used to do the Ouija board. I think he was obviously really naive. Yeah, so Richard and Aunt Mills, Richie and Aunt Mills, would do the Ouija board. On January 15th, the very first occurrence began happening in the house, and this was like a dripping tap noise, very loud. They hunted high and low. They couldn't seem to find any kind of leaking tap. They couldn't find, the family couldn't find like a shower head leaking, nothing. There was no reasonable explanation to why this dripping sound was happening. So I'm gonna do my big one here. Oh, they're sticky as hell. What was I saying? January 26th, Aunt Millie suddenly died. She was not ill. They weren't aware that she was in any kind of ill health. So the fact that she died was out of the blue. It was out of nowhere. She shouldn't have died. Because her and Richard were so close, Richard took this real bad. He was devastated, according to his mum. Obviously, he was really close to his Aunt Millie, so obviously he's going to be devastated. So, yeah, she died all of a sudden. It didn't say what she died of. I couldn't find that out either. But that, yeah, she's dead. In the following days to come, right, Why is this? These transfers are actually, they look really cool, but my God, they are a nightmare. So the following days to come, things started getting worse. And by worse, I mean they would hear really loud thumping. It sounded like it was coming from inside the wall. Cool. And it always happened at night, and it always sounded like it was coming from upstairs. But when the parents, again, went to investigate, they couldn't find any reasoning for these banging noises to be happening in the wall, right? So what they then did, they were like, right, there's got to be some sort of critter, a creature, vermin, something causing these noises in the wall, but what the hell is it? So they called an exterminator to come and check for like mice and rodents, things big enough to be making these thudding noises at night. But this exterminator was like, oh no, my friend, there's nothing here. So at this point they thought, Aunt Millie was a spiritualist, yeah, she was a spiritualist. Her belief was that the dead could make contact with the living via whatever. So they come to terms with the fact that they honestly believed that this was Aunt Millie trying to make contact with the famo. She was banging on the wall, she was making her presence really, really known. Ouch. Oh, not quite done. You can tell these are done because this paper bit tends to slide like that. And then it's safe to pull off. You see? So one night, Richard's mum was in, obviously, her room. It wasn't Richard's room because he was in bed apparently. And they had like a holy picture on the wall. As in, I think it had an image of like Jesus or God or something. They didn't specify what was in the image. This holy picture apparently was pulling away from the wall, pulling away, and then it was like jolting all over the place as if it was gonna like come off the wall and fall down. That's kind of what this ghost is going for, like get it off the wall. And at first it stuck to my hand. At first Richard's mum thought it could be Richard because obviously maybe his bed backed onto the wall and he was being a bit of a nightmare, like playing in his room or something, I don't know, jumping on his bed, something stupid that kids do that's dangerous. But when she went in, no, Richard was soundo. Right, I'm going to say this right now. I am so paranoid and I'm so easily scared that I'm filming this and I'm pretty sure I can hear things. My hallway's there and I heard something from in my office. Although my hamster is in there. Could have been her. Debunked! Richie was asleep. It was not him. No. Right, I'm going to just take this up. That water's just dripped all down me. Oh, that was cold. So what happens now is the ghost, or whatever it is, demon, is like, oh, you bitches ain't listening, for fuck's sake. We need to step it up a little. So they go in, and his bed is like shaking and moving and rattling all over the place, and Richard's just sitting on it. And according to his mum, it was too vigorous of a movement to be done by Richard himself, especially because when she went in, he was just sitting on the bed. So it was just too vigorous, and they were like, no, it's a ghost. It's a ghost! Yes, so Richard is like shitting himself, bed's going all over the gaff. Like, it's really scary. Like, I make jokes of it, but I would be scared. However, Mummy Dearest was not convinced that this was all. I've got my Kryolan palette, and I'm going to use this grey colour. Was not at all convinced that this was, like, this wasn't up to Richard. Like, that he could well have been faking and like just causing a drama in the house, being a bit of like a, no, is it a prankster? Like, sort of prankster. Just winding them up basically, like pulling on their leg. So they were like, right, is he having a wind up or what here? So they took him to the doctor because they thought Aunt Millie's died. Maybe that's something to do with it. Maybe he's not himself. And at this point, he needs help. However, when they went to the doctor, this was in the 1950s, the doctor was like, do you know what? I can't find anything medically wrong. His obs have come back normal, stable. I think he's just highly strung. So the doctor said he was highly strung, and like I said, back in them days, mental health was not. If you had a mental health problem, get the straitjacket, lock you away, and throw the fucking key as far as the eye can see, and be done. Like, that is where you stay. You is crazy. You is not coming out anymore. Okay, so highly strung in them days meant he was having symptoms of anxiety and depression. Oh my god, a man just coughed outside and I shat myself. I was going to do it at night to give that spooky vibe. Not happening. So yeah, he was suffering from symptoms of anxiety and depression. But in them days, it was called highly strung. Whatever, you ignorant bastards. Okay, so the next thing that literally done the parents in, it was the last straw. It was the last straw, they couldn't take it anymore. Again, Richard was heard screaming. So they come rushing in. I'm just taking the zombie colour palette from Kryolan. Richard's screaming once again. And his mother comes rushing in to find that he has, all over his chest, carved into his chest like this, a wound that says St. Louis. They are in St. Louis. Could he have done this himself? Yeah. If he's suffering from anxiety, depression, he could well be suffering from something else as well. We just don't know. Son of a fucking bitch. So at this point, when he's got St. Louis carved into his chest, they then think, right, that's it. He's in the grips of something demonic. That's immediately what they think. They think something demonic. I'm just going to powder my face. At this point, they go to their local pastor, a guy called Raymond Bishop. Now, Raymond Bishop was a priest, but he was not a Catholic. He's not a Catholic, so this is out of his jurisdiction, basically. So what he does, he puts them in touch with Father Bowden. Father Bowden then hears about the case and thinks, oh mate, I've heard this before. I've never done one myself, but I've heard of it. This sounds like a possession. So instead of thinking the mum is going mental and the kid has just got problems, he takes it upon himself to go visit the family and treat it as what it was. At first he did expect to go there and just find that their son is like a prankster, playing jokes, just winding everyone up like I said earlier. However, he didn't dismiss what they were saying. So he went back and he was like, okay, right, I'm going to do this as an exorcism. Okay, so Father Bowden has obtained permission from the bishop to read passages from this special Bible about exorcism. Now, Father Bowden on the first day goes to see Richard and he's like, I'm going to start doing prayer, okay? And Richard's like, yeah, right, mate. However, as soon as he starts reading the prayer, Richie Rich is like, oh my God, like, what the hell? I've got this awful, awful pain on my chest. It's like burning, it's like scratching, and it gets worse, and he starts screaming, right? So Father Bowden, being the priest that he is, pulls his shirt open and sees written on Richard's chest is help me, but it's written backwards. So it says pallet. Palletted. And then it's at this point that the Father Bowden's like, yep, he's possessed. By who? Not quite sure yet. We'll figure that one out. Anyway. So, poor Richard, love him, has got this demonic possession going on inside of him. This is awful. It looks fine if you're not going to put anything on it. The second you try and colour it or put like powder or anything, them edges are a nightmare. They don't even blend nicely. I've just tried to blend it out with IPA into the skin here, and it's not, it's just created a harsh edge. Okay, so the first night is a challenge. Richie Rich starts playing up. Because obviously it's the devil that's in him, the devil don't want to hear all this God stuff. So he starts to become physically violent towards the priests and his dad and that, and they end up holding him down. Anyway, this goes on and on and on. And then one night, the priest is doing his little bit, and apparently Richard jolts up in bed and says to him, open the window, and it's like he's going to throw up, so he's heaving and he's like, and he opened the window, and then all of a sudden Richard goes, he's gone, and it's like, no he hasn't, you liar. Anyway, the priests are so naive, they're like, God fucking blessed, mate, done, job done, I'm a success, I'm the bollocks, he's gone. No, my friend, oh no, matey. Within the priest going home, thinking job's a good one, by 3 AM that same night, Richard's mum is back on the phone and she's like, he's kicking off again, he's getting violent, it's all happening, like you've got to come back. Priest comes back and he's more violent than ever, and he starts getting really like personal with his comments, like, excuse me. But, so it's all going on. Eventually, what eventually happens, because your boy is getting so out of control, he ends up in a psychiatric unit. Anyway, he ends up in a psychiatric unit. Father Bowden continues with his exorcisms. He continues with all of the prayers and things like that. Right, I don't understand this pigment. Get on my chest. Here. Fucking son of a bitch, don't argue with me. Do as told. There we go. I'm trying to look ill, did you notice? It goes on for, I believe, 14 days. I'm sure that's what they said. Goes on for 14 days of Richard kicking off, being a nightmare, being rude, being just not Richard really. And eventually the priests come in and they've got their holy water and they're splashing holy water on him, and they're like, who the fuck are you? Who do you think you are? So what they're trying to do apparently is get the devil or whatever's in him to say his name. And he comes out and says in this weird Latin accent, because apparently the ability to speak in other native tongues is when you never were be able to before, is a sign of demonic possession, and specifically Latin. I don't know why. Finally, what happens? what happens. Let's just highlight, give a little bit of highlight to these collars. Oh, look at me. So I'm gonna dry my teeth. So, according to the priest, the final thing that happened was Richard sat bolt upright in his bed, yeah? And he says he can see, as if he's hallucinating, he can see this Archangel Michael, means nothing to me, this Archangel Michael wrestling with the devil, and then he throws the devil into a cave. And at this point, he sits up and he goes, he's gone. Again with the he's gone. Are we supposed to believe that at this point after this scenario of last time? He's gone. So to finish, the priest is thinking could possibly be gone. So to finish up, what he does is he does like a Holy Communion, which is where he blesses him and puts that thing in his mouth, and Michael has to sit in front of the priest and that. And it all goes well, and then that's it. He goes home with his family and starts going back to normal. I mean, that's the story that's based, The Exorcist is based around. And then obviously they took it and they televised it, done all this like theatrical stuff with it, and the makeup and stuff to make him look really sick. But that's it, and it's one of my favourite films. It's one of my favourite makeups. I love Dick Smith. I think he was a genius of his time. So this is my easy version of it. My opinion on Exorcisms. I just think I'm not a believer in above or below. So the idea of an exorcism would mean I'd have to acknowledge that those things exist and that it's possible for that to happen. What I do think is that Michael could have suffered with a condition called temporal lobe seizures. I was looking into this. Now, temporal lobe seizures are a fit. Part of the thing, apparently, Richard was displaying fits. He was having seizures. Now, what can happen with these seizures is you get hyper-idealistic views on religion and philosophy. You can act really violent. They can cause you to act really violent and spit. Just say really bad things, and they can also contribute to hallucinations. Does that sound more like it, or does it sound more like he was possessed? I don't know. That's for people to decide. I personally believe he could have had this alongside the mental health problems because his Aunt Millie died, but because they were arseholes back in them days, they didn't acknowledge mental health unless you were absolutely like off your fucking trolley. So I don't know. But that is my Super Easy Regan. So if you like the video, subscribe, ring the bell. I don't think it does anything because people don't really get notified. No, I don't understand what that's for then. Comment what you would like to see. If you know of a true story that was turned into a horror film, let me know because I want to do more. Anyway, this is my Regan. I think she's real pretty. And I will see you on the next one. Spooky season is here. See you later, babies.